It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the official lab for your source for daily fantasy hockey news and updates affecting your squad. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Hump Day edition. Little bit of a quiet time in the NHL, but that doesn't mean we're slacking on the fantasy takes. Patrick Kane update, Fantilli, Laine, what's going on with these beleaguered Blue Jackets? Nico Hischier calling out his squad. Can the Devils salvage the season? And, of course, a little Wednesday same-game parlay ahead of the All-Star break. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's tap in and get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey heads, degenerate gamblers, and fantasy fanatics, welcome back to your daily source for news, updates, and everything that you need to dominate your league. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers. Much love for making us your first listen every single day. Make sure you're out there smashing that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. 5-star reviews wherever you're listening means so much to Steele and I. And if not, drop us some reviews. Let us know what you guys want to hear. All we are trying to do on this show is make your squads better. Actually, I'll take that back. Helps me make my squad a little bit better as well. Shameless plug. Thank you so much for joining me. Solo episode again, my friends. Steele on the IR's got a little bit of business to take care of, so I'm going to take care of our business. Wednesday episode. It's a quiet stretch in the NHL. I'll talk a little bit about it, but Patrick Kane injury update, Adam Fantilli, Patrick Laine, believe it or not, Columbus Blue Jackets news. And yeah, you got to dig into these bad teams for fantasy value. You've heard it all before. We're going to break down some of these angles with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Nico Hischier, I know it was a couple of days ago now, but he's calling out this New Jersey Devils team. And I think, given how much we talk about every single squad on this show in the NHL, I don't think we've given enough attention to this New Jersey Devils situation. So I'm going to break it down a little bit. Can they salvage the season? Jesper Bratt replaces Jack Hughes in the All-Star game. Obviously, nothing to do fantasy-wise. But Jesper Bratt has 50 points in 47 games. So I want to talk about these Devils Wednesday night. Only 3 games as the NHL is set to hit the NHL All-Star break. But I got a same-game parlay. We're picking up steam. Been a bit of a rough ride with the bets. We're tightening it up big time. And let's tighten it up right now. Patrick Kane, off the top. Everybody knows about his hip resurfacing injury. We've covered all of these angles. But the newest piece of news is, and I called it, they were saying that he might have him back before the break. We knew they weren't going to rush this player back from injury. He expects to return to the lineup when they play Vancouver on February 10th. So that gives him a whole next almost 2 extra weeks of rest. And that's exactly why I expected them to do just this. But when Patrick Kane came aboard to this Red Wings club, there was some doubters, but going back together with Alex DeBrincat, again, we're not breaking down angles that have been broken down. All that needs to be said is he will be back after the All-Star break. He was putting up numbers, 16 points, 7 goals and 9 assists, helping the power play. This Detroit club also ascending the standings, only 1 point back of the 4th place Toronto Maple Leafs. So when it comes to Patrick Kane, given his fantasy value and relevance, especially on a team that should be continuing to rise, if they can get goaltending, Alex Lyon, shout out to you. I think Patrick Kane is one of these situations that I know a lot of you out there are paying attention to, and for good reason. He can be that piece that takes your squad over the top. So big news is, he will be back on a specific date, February 10th, double circle it, Vancouver Canucks. We knew it wasn't going to be the hip, so that's even better news. Just had to mention it because of how big of a name he is. Let's move right into the Columbus Blue Jackets. By the way, my friends, today, episode Wednesday, it's going to be short and sweet. It's a quiet time in the NHL, but I needed to make sure I came on here to give whatever angles that need some fantasy love some attention. That's why I have to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. And quickly off the top, Patrick Laine obviously dealing with off-ice issues, mental health issues, and first and foremost, we've covered the fantasy angles with Patrick Laine ad nauseum. So we know that this was probably a player that you've already dropped or gotten away from a little while ago. If for whatever reason you were still holding an IR spot for Patrick Laine, which I understand in some formats, maybe it was a lot harder to get rid of this guy, but it's time to finally close the chapter on Patrick Laine for sure this season. And look, I'm not going to talk about a guy who's having off-ice mental health issues. Obviously, we want him to do the best possible, but 6 goals, 3 assists, minus 10 in 18 games this season. He missed 9 games in October. He's got the clavicle now. He's got the off-ice issues. I don't want to say his career is over, but I can't help but feel that everything that has happened with this player, that is the direction it's heading. Number 2 overall pick. So much to like about his game when he is cooking, but it's seeming more and more that he's not even close to the kitchen these days. And these off-ice issues can really derail a guy who was already dealing with real on-ice issues. All I had to say about Patrick Laine is make sure he is not holding an IR spot. Now, much more importantly, in terms of your fantasy squad, Adam Fantilli, he takes a cut. I believe it was going in on a hit on Jared McCann Sunday against the Seattle Kraken. Hit me in the comments if I was off on that one, but I'm not off on this take. He's third in rookie scoring, 12 goals, 15 assists. But what I'm liking about Adam Fantilli is, of course, everyone was on him as a third overall pick. Lots of attention in the draft over Connor Bedard, Leo Carlson, and Fantilli. Fantilli is proving that he is already ready to take on a two-way game. He brings a physical brand of hockey that I'm really loving. 16 penalty minutes, 115 shots on net. He isn't afraid to throw the body around as well. 46 hits, 25 block shots in only 15 minutes of ice time per night on a really, really bad Columbus Blue Jackets team, a team that allows the second most goals in the league. They're right at the bottom in power play efficiency and penalty kill efficiency. I believe it's like 23rd or 24th for both of those numbers. So the fact that he's been able to get it done and still play that two-way game, bring that responsibility and peripheral fantasy value, he takes a cut, taking that hit on McCann. No new news out about Fantilli's diagnosis, prognosis, if you will, but it has to be double circled because there's going to be a lot of GMs out there that, even though I know Fantilli's points don't jump off the page, but if you were drafting rookies and they're augmenting your squad like Fantilli has done in such a good job in 19 years old, this is going to be a situation that you want to keep your eyes double peeled on because no GMs out there right now can afford even a single game without a body in the lineup. We're not going to afford a single minute wasted on today's show. I have a lot to say about the New Jersey Devils right around the break. We got to talk about it. Same game parlay for y'all Wednesday night. Only 3 games on tap. So, I'm keeping it tight, but there is so much to talk about. And today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. We come on the show to escape some of the craziness and realities of life. Sometimes we got to talk about being prepared for real life. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in decades. It's getting scary. I couldn't even imagine if some of my family, friends, even my co-host Steele got sick and couldn't get the medicine they need because supply chain issues kept the life-saving medication out of their hands. Thankfully, everyone's going to be okay with Jace Medical. The Jace case, packed with 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, and others. This stuff could happen to any of us, so make sure you're visiting jacemedical.com. Complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician. Your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Make sure you go to jacemedical.com and use code Locked On to get that offer. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Happy Super Bowl to all who's celebrating. with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like us, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring that best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite snacks, and placing some Super Bowl bets. Grab those spicy chicken wings, maybe a couple of wobbly pops, hit the couch, and make your bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, FanDuel has bets for which players score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today. Get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more. FanDuel, official partner and sportsbook of the NFL. My goodness me. I am fired up for the Super Bowl, but I'm more fired up for what's going on right now in the NHL. And that's just a straight up fact, because before I get into this New Jersey Devils situation, shout out to everyone out there for holding us down Monday to Friday. Hope you've been enjoying some of the special guests we've had on. If you missed those, tap into the channel, subscribe, smash that 5-star review. Let us know what you're feeling. But this stretch of the NHL schedule coming out of the NHL All-Star break can be a very treacherous one for fantasy GMs to navigate. I'm not even going to start talking about what it's like from a betting handicapping perspective, because it can be a bit dodgy. Players have hit the family, they've gone away on vacation, and on the other side of it, players coming back from injury can make your lineup decisions right now tricky. And obviously the extra rest, a lot of teams hitting their 1 week midseason break. These are some of those caveats as a fantasy GM that you have to consider. And that's why I'm looking at some of these situations. There are going to be some fantasy value happening regardless. Look at Fantilli, like I just mentioned. Take a look at these New Jersey Devils who have been banged up. If players start coming back, it's going to affect the overall quality of the team for sure, but it might also pick up the fantasy value of some of those peripheral pieces. For example, in New Jersey, Vitek Vanacek might bring some value up in them. And let's talk about this New Jersey Devils team, because I think a lot of people, including me, headed into this season, I'm calling them a playoff team for sure, and I don't think they're out of it yet. 51 points right now. They're tied with the Penguins. They're tied with the Capitals as well. This Metro Division and the Eastern Conference, not to take anything away from the West and not to get on a tangent, things are going to get real spicy here. And with the Devils, much like the Jackets, they've been banged up with injuries to key pieces. And this is affecting fantasy value to a lot of peripheral value in pieces that, with the Devils, we expected a lot more out of. Dawson Mercer, obviously Dougie Hamilton is out. Timo Meier has been disappointing. And I think, and this is what I just want to say, given all those injuries, Jack Hughes, Dougie Hamilton, and even Nico Hischier for a bit, those are the 3 most important players on this team. And they have barely played. I don't have the numbers up. I don't think they've played more than a handful of games with all 3 of them in the lineup. Then you factor in the struggles in the crease and some of those edge pieces that I mentioned not putting up numbers that they were brought in to do in Timo Meier. I'm starting to think that the New Jersey Devils are very, very lucky to be sitting in the position they are in. Obviously, Jesper Bratt replaces Jack Hughes at the All-Star game, and he deserves it. 50 points in 47 games, and I had to bring this up. Jesper Bratt has 20 points on the power play. I know the Devils are up there in overall goals scored still, and I think this is one of those things that you have to pay attention to this team, and this is what I had to bring up. If they start getting healthy, I have to start looking at Vitek Vanacek as perhaps a buy low target, because even if he doesn't fully turn his game around, he's going to start getting wins and benefit from a squad that down the stretch. Jack Hughes comes back healthy. I don't know the full run out on what Dougie Hamilton full expectation on his return is. I think it could be right at the end of the season, or it might even be in the playoffs. So they're going to need something. But the last angle, if they don't get this team healthy and Vanacek is the guy being the number 1, they're probably going to go out and get a goaltender. I've heard Jake Allen. I've heard some other names out there. Devils fit the mold as a team that are going to add. So I'm looking at Vanacek. If they get healthy and they start heating up, I'm jumping all over him as a piece that I can add for maybe cheap, buy low, and he gets some wins. I know the numbers haven't been good. I know also Nico Dawes hasn't been good. So I just have my eyes peeled on this New Jersey Devils team. Like I mentioned, 51 points given all these injuries is impressive. And I think if they can get healthy, you'll see a bump for Vanacek or even better. Jake Allen goes to this team. I'm taking a look because week to week down the stretch, this Devils squad that obviously puts up goals aplenty catches fire. This is where you're going to want to be paying attention to. That's why you're tapped into this episode. Shout out to everyone for listening for the Wednesday show. Got a little bit of bet breakdown coming up right after the break. Good luck over the next week and a half, and make sure you got your roster updated every single day. It's going to be the difference. That's why today's episode is sponsored by Factor. Make sure you're ready for the new year. Forget the frantic lunch preps and rush dinners. Factor's 2-minute meals are the secret weapon in the new year. Fuel up with the quality meals all delivered to your front door. Factor has everything we need from flavorful, nutritious eats in addition to ready-to-eat meals. They got cold-pressed juices. They got everything delicious. They got everything that's going to keep you healthy on a day-to-day basis. Make sure you're checking them out. At Factor, head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL. Use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Now, my friends, Wednesday night. This is the last 3 games before the NHL hits the brakes. Let's not hit the brakes, though, because I need to pick up steam on these bets. It's been a very up and down couple of weeks. I'm loving the same game parlays, though. So that's where I'm headed in this one. I'm taking a look at the Ottawa Senators into the Detroit Red Wings. And before I dig into the numbers, pegged the Ottawa Senators to come up with a win the other night against Nashville. I know it was an improbable fashion, but a win is a win that way. And before I get to Timmy Stutz, because that's my lock of the night, 8-2-0 for the Ottawa Senators in their last 10 games against the Detroit Red Wings club that I think is playoff quality. So I don't want to take away too much from them. But this angle, Brady Tkachuk is saying that now they're going to turn things around. I don't know how much you want to read into that. But I'm just reading into the head-to-head numbers. 8-2-0 in the last 10 is more than enough, given the angle that I just saw and spoke about. Ottawa is ready to go. Shout out to my cat in the background. Don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, going to ride with Ottawa on the money line, number 1, same game parlay, number 2. 7 of the last 10 between these two clubs have gone over the number. We know both of these squads are still searching for consistency in the cage, especially the Ottawa Senators, but I think this one goes over the number in a hurry. So I'm loving the over 6.5, and it comes down to Timmy Stutz as my lock of the night. Had him the other night as an anytime point, 1 goal, 1 assist in their 4-3 overtime win against Nashville. This kid is a stud, and he has been the best forward on this squad in terms of offensive production. 46 games played, 47 points. We know all about his fantasy value, but I think the Ottawa Senators bring it tonight in a very big way to head into the All-Star break on a little bit of a mini heater, let's call it, quote unquote. Ottawa Senators money line. Over 6.5, and hit me with the Timmy Stutz anytime point. The anytime point isn't going to bring a ton of value, but I'm actually liking it coupled into the rest of my bets. Short episode today, my friends. A little bit of coverage everywhere. Hope you've been feeling it. Can't wait to get back for Thursday's episode. Shout out to everyone for making us your first listen every single day. Make sure you're out there checking out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel from Locked On. They have you covered. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, Wednesday edition. Thank you for joining me. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today. Attention hockey fans looking for NHL news and analysis? Look no further than the Locked On NHL podcast, offering daily insights on all the top NHL stories. From trade deadline and free agency rumors, teams on the rise, and discussion on the league's biggest stars, Locked On NHL has you covered for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.